fit his lyricism, and it fit his sound. It's that very laid back but smoldering energy that period of the Bossa Nova had. It fit him perfect. Those beautiful melodies. I mean, and with his ears, man, it didn't matter if the tune was 13 bars or 15 and a half bars long. He just swam through it and rewrote lyrics. That's who he was. I mean, the early years, you can hear that. The very early years, you could hear that. I mean, and Zoot had that sense of he had that sense of swing that would get you boogieing. Al had that beautiful sense of sound and time, but also the harmonic structures. There wasn't anything. The great line that Al said, they were on their way to the Barron Jazz Festival, and I forget who the other tenor player was, a black dude, and he said, "Hey Al, can we play giant steps?" And Al says, "Sure, but I got my own changes."
Can you talk about the idea that Stan was with Teagarden, basically had to sign off as his guardian, okay, in order to go on the road with him?
Maury Stein, that's the story. Maury Stein is the one that heard Stan Getz and went to Stan's mother, and I said, because he was 16, and he has that picture out front. Did you see that picture out front?
Maury was where at that time?
Playing alto in the Jack Teagarden band.
Teagarden band.
Yeah. Go look
Break it open. I don't know this.
He's got the picture out front.
Tell me. So Maury was playing with Teagarden.
Yeah. And he went to Stan's mother because Stan was going to go on the road, and Stan's mother looked, of all people to look at, God bless you, wherever you are, Maury, or who knows. But he said, she looked at Maury and she said, "Maury, please take care of my son." "Oh, don't worry, Mom." That band was a whew.
How can you just talk as candidly as possible about the fact that you were not in this subculture of? I mean, Stan was basically. I mean, Teagarden taught him how to use his right hand very well. They drank a lot, and then by 18, he was into heroin and things like that. But you were not. And can you talk about that? The divide and the sort of cliquishness that took place in that period?
Well, the cliquishness, I knew the people that were, I knew the people that weren't, and I was afraid. I was afraid of it. I couldn't drink. I used to have like half a glass of wine or beer, and I couldn't play. I would everything would turn to putty. I mean, like Zoot said, "How do you play?" Somebody asked him, "How do you play that way?" He said, "I practice that way." Yeah, you should go down and see them at the it was the half note or the blue note where they played the blue note. Down the half note in the village. You go down to see them play, and they'd be chug-lugging Scotch whiskey and throwing it over their shoulder, and the bartender they had an act. But somebody asked, "How can you play that way?" He said, "We practice that way."
Did you see, like Zoot said, he was a nice bunch of guys. I mean. We're good? Yeah. Okay. Why would Zoot say something like that? Because when he was drunk and he was just...
Well, he could be so sweet. He was so good looking. I mean, he would walk into the room and all the ladies would suddenly turn and look at Stan, and everybody else was invisible, And he was bound and determined to populate the world, He was... And he came close. I mean, he had no scruples when it came to all that. That's why. And then in the next minute, you'd be talking to him, and he would be just sweet as apple pie. He always treated me with a great deal of respect.
When you started you started to really cook and put out. We talked about Morning Song. I know that was in Germany, but you came back to the States and you were fully established. When did you?
What for fully established? I came here and I was around town. I was making $25 a week.
Right, we talked about that with the rent. You'd be better off if you wanted to rent an apartment. You put arranger or teacher as opposed to jazz musician. You couldn't even get a lease.
Oh no. It's
But how? Tell me a time when Stan showed love to you in some way. You talked about the story when he gave you a hug, but an inspirational moment once you had, not when you were in his hotel room as a red-haired baby, but when
I never really wanted anything from him. I felt so honored and privileged to have been close enough to him to be able to just talk about everyday life. When he was sick and towards the end, I used to call him almost 3-4 times a week. Stan, is there anything you need? What can I do for you? No, nothing, man. Just take care of yourself. That was it. You know, he always appreciated it. I said, well, I don't want to bug you, man. You know, like, I know you need your rest. No, I feel like talking. You know, call me whenever you feel like it. That was it.
So you had a good, but you didn't play on the bandstand with him.
Never. You know the story, Johnny Griffin told me this story. And you know, Johnny Griffin, I mean, it was like, you know, crazy. He said that Stan Getz came to town and he was working somewhere, the Plug Nickel or Mr. I don't know, Mr. something. I don't know the Chicago clubs very well. And a bunch of guys went down to Johnny Griffin's thing. They say, hey, Johnny, there's going to be a session later, and we hear Stan Getz is going to be there. Go down and cut him. He said, I'll go down and play with him. You don't cut Stan Getz. This Johnny Griffin told me the story.
Cut him meaning what?
Well, make him look bad, you know.
Make him look bad, right?
Yeah.
You don't, I mean, explain.
And Sonny Stitt said the same thing. He said, being out on the road with him, he said, you got to keep your chops together. You know, you got to practice every day. What are we going to play tonight? And Dizzy was great at putting 2 saxophones on the stand together. He loved that.
Right. And it was a competitive fire.
Yeah,
guys got up there.
but it really wasn't. That's not how you're going to do that. You're not going to be able to play.
Right.
You go in there with all this anger and over aggressiveness, and it's not going to work. You got to go up there and play who you are. And both those cats had it covered. I mean, they were just about the same age, and they came out of the same people. Charlie Parker, Lester Young.
Can you explain to younger cats all over the world why Stan Getz is relevant today in music?
It always sounds fresh. It always sounds fresh. You listen to Sonny Stitt, it always sounds fresh. Go back to the early records of Charlie Parker, it still sounds good. That's the mark of the creative geniuses that have left. I don't care how much later it happens, it's still good. It's still fresh. Why is pizza still good?
I had 2 slices last night. Also, do you know,
I mean, even my wife will eat it for breakfast with a cup of coffee. 2-3 days old. Oh man, you know, cold.
You know, even though you never were on the bandstand with him, you knew that there was drama and histrionics in his personal life. Norman Granz, do you believe that how important was Norman Granz to Stan's career to make a livelihood?
Norman Granz was presented that opportunity to all the people that were at Jazz Philharmonic. You know, I just turned 80 last April, and at my age, I don't know too many 80-year-olds that heard all those people up close or had a chance to talk to those people up close. I mean, I remember going to Klein Hens Music Hall in Buffalo. The saxophone players were Ben Webster, Coleman Hawkins, Charlie Ventura, Illinois Jacquet, Flip Phillips, just for the tenor players. And then there were a couple alto players that, I mean, it was incredible. The piano player was Nat King Cole. The drummers were Lee Young, it was Buddy Rich, and Gene Krupa. In the first few years, anyway. I mean, Dizzy, Roy Eldridge. I mean, it was incredible. And I had a chance to hear them live. I had a chance to hear Charlie Parker live. I heard Bird with Strings in Buffalo. And if you don't think that, I can still feel the sound here. No, that was, I'm very lucky, very fortunate.
When you're out today, whether it's, I mean, I went to the library yesterday and I pulled out this 3-sax salute. This was written back in 2008. Tell me why, when you think about Stan, what do you think about today when he comes into your heart?
It's, again, it boils down to lyricism. I don't want to know about all the personal, the negativity. The positive thing of it was the great time and those beautiful solos that he played. I mean, it's just, and it is. It's incredible.
But you are aware, like you don't want to talk about it. But is it interesting to you, or that might not be the right word? Is it vexing to you that he was so troubled on one side, yet he could produce all this incredible stuff?
The negative thing, no, it doesn't matter. Listen to like what he produced, huh? No, look at Vincent Van Gogh. You talk about the negativity, man. There was something not quite right there, but look what he produced. Mm-hmm. So do we have to like say, okay, he should have been thrown in a dungeon somewhere and left to rot? No.
Well, look at today's. Listen, we have just as a topical thing. I mean, we live in an age incarceration. We have overpopulation. Stan Getz would never have gotten out of jail today.
That's right. That's right. Meanwhile, Gene Ammons spent half his life in jail for the same felons, not felons, but for the same habits.
Don, was there something spiritual or philosophical about Stan? I mean, you talked on the phone. Did he have his way of looking at life that you remember?
No, we never discussed that. I didn't want to. The person that I can talk about at great length about that is Sonny Rollins. He says, man, everything happens for a reason. He's into this Zen Buddhist thing, I think. We never discussed that. But every time I talk to him, he's very, man, we're only here for a short time. Make the most of it. What we do, he says, as a saxophone player, he says, this is a privilege. This is a God-given thing. Take advantage of it.
Even though you weren't there, what did Stan take away? What were the most important things he took away from Tea Garden and Benny Goodman?
I don't know. Maybe Benny Goodman is how not to treat people, but maybe he took that with him. I don't know. And you know all the Benny Goodman stories, I'm sure.
Not a whole lot,
yeah,
really,
but it's
but that's not.
Yeah.
At the end of the day.
You talk about respect and everything. Phil Woods tells a story where they were in some band down in Birdland. He said, and Phil Woods was not intimidated by anybody. He said, and Stan Getz came in, and the band was Zoot and Al. I forget which band was that. It might have been the early Thad. It was the beginning of that band. And Stan Getz walked in, sat at the bar, was drinking. He said, and I had a couple of solos to play. He said, and suddenly I was rattled because Stan was there. It's incredible.
Just my final question. You are humble about. I mean, like I said, I've been listening to this Pete Magadini album where your ideas just keep flowing out of you. When you first saw Stan, if you can talk about it as a musician, how did he tap into that deep reservoir to keep improvising over and over and over, keep it fresh? How did he? Because you have that too, but the longevity of his improvisation, where that deep reservoir, that well. Can you talk about that?
Well, I think it comes from like being able to, or not being able to, but looking for new people to play with, and approaching it from a slightly different angle, or looking down, or looking up at it, or sideways, or changing keys. And I know that Sonny does that as well. He'll play tunes in other keys just to force himself to to approach the tune differently, or a different tempo. or a different feel or whatever. But Stan did that. You know, he played with a lot of different people, and I think that had a lot to do with his longevity. And he didn't kill himself when he played. I mean, he didn't overblow the saxophone. I know people that have died from strokes, from brain hemorrhages, blowing so hard on the bandstand. I've learned. It looks like I'm playing very hard into the horn. I don't. I have asthma. I don't put a lot of energy into the horn, but it sounds that way.
You wrote the classic tune Samba de Rollins. Did you ever write a tune for Stan? Or anything close?
No. I found that difficult to do. He asked me one time. He was at my house. I mean, more than once. We cooked dinner, cooked some pasta for him and Maury, because they were great friends. And he said, "Don, let me hear some of the tunes you wrote. Write me an album." I said, "Stan, what am I?" But there was the one thing that I was thrilled with. I said, "I got something I want you to hear." And I put this recording of a tenor player with strings from Europe. And he said, "I don't remember recording that." And I said, "You didn't." I said, "It's me." And he freaked out. He said, "Really?" He says, "Wow, play it again." I said, "No." But it was something. It was a film score that somebody had written, and they asked me, "Can you play it like Stan?" And I said, "Stan who?" He said, "No, you know." I said, "Yeah." So I said, "Give me a minute," and I got my present from Stan, my white mouthpiece, and put my Brill Hard on there, the real hard reed. I said, "You got to get close to the sound. I can't blow hard. It's got to be easy." And it was he said, I can't believe that. Is that really?" I said, "Yes, it's really me." He said, "You did listen to me." I said, "Yes, I told you that all these years, because I didn't sound that way. It never sounded that way again." I said it'd be impossible. There's a graveyard filled with people that tried to sound like John Coltrane or like Stan Getz.
What was your reaction to the Focus records that he did?
Oh, I think it was wonderful.
Can you just talk about when you first heard it, or how Stan was able to do that?
Well, it's hard to know what the actual truth was, except that we do know Focus was a string quartet that Eddie Sauter was working on. And in the end, I think he let Stan hear it, because they had done some work together for film score in London and in Europe. And Eddie had the band in Baden-Baden in Germany, and they had worked together, and he had arranged a couple things for Stan and flew Stan in, and Stan looked at the score, and then they started talking about this string quartet. And they said, it'd be interesting if you wrote that for like a bigger string section, and do the let Stan play over it. And that's as much as I know. I don't know how true that was, or what he actually penciled in for Stan so far as melodies were concerned. There were some beautiful melodies that Stan played that were Eddie Sauter's. But that's as much as I know about it. Stan always had I remember Willie Maiden at an Al Cohn, Zoot Sims gig in the Village, and Stan walked in, and he knew Willie, he knew me. "Yeah, guys, I do, Stan, what are you drinking?" "Yeah, and Willie Maiden looked at him. He said, "Stan, I can't stop listening to Focus." He said, "Really?" He said, "Say it backwards." That's all. Say Focus backwards. That was Stan. That's Stan. Nice bunch of guys, right?